Daniel was driving down a desolate highway late at night. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the road stretched endlessly before him, swallowed by darkness on all sides. The hum of his old car was the only sound accompanying him. He'd driven this route many times before, but tonight, something felt off. As he rounded a bend, his headlights caught a figure standing by the side of the road. A woman dressed in a long white dress, her hair damp and clinging to her pale face. She stood still, her arms hanging at her sides, staring into the void. Instinctively, Daniel slowed down. The sight was unsettling, but she looked like she needed help. Against his better judgment, he stopped the car and rolled down the window. "Do you need a ride?" he called out. The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her movements were stiff, almost unnatural. Without a word, she walked to the passenger side, opened the door, and slid into the seat. The air in the car grew noticeably colder the moment she sat down. Daniel glanced at her, trying to mask his unease. "Where are you headed?" "Home," she whispered, her voice soft and distant. "Just up the road." Her response sent a shiver down his spine, but he tried to focus on the road. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the engine. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The woman sat unnaturally still, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her gaze fixed straight ahead. After a few miles, she raised her arm and pointed toward a crumbling old house barely visible through the fog. "There," she said, her voice barely audible. Daniel pulled into the driveway, his tires crunching on the gravel. He turned to tell her they'd arrived, but his words caught in his throat. The passenger seat was empty. The woman was gone. He sat frozen, his mind racing. He hadn't heard the door open. He hadn't felt her leave. Heart pounding, he stepped out of the car and approached the house. The wooden steps creaked under his weight, and the door swung open with a low groan. Inside, the house was dark and abandoned, cobwebs clinging to the corners and dust covering every surface. On the mantel above the fireplace, he noticed a framed photograph. His breath caught in his throat. It was her, the woman in the white dress. Her dark hair was neatly styled, and she smiled softly at the camera. Beneath the photo, an old newspaper clipping was pinned to the frame. The headline read, "Local woman killed in tragic car accident, 1978. The article detailed how she had been walking along the highway after her car broke down. She was struck by a passing vehicle and killed instantly. The driver fled the scene, leaving her body to be discovered hours later. Daniel stumbled backward, the flashlight shaking in his hand. He turned and bolted from the house, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Jumping into his car, he started the engine and sped away, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. But as he glanced in the rear-view mirror, his blood ran cold. Sitting in the back seat, her eyes locked on his, was the woman in white.